just have a good look at these female pants. I bet you would want to know how to do them. Let's get started. Hello guys, welcome. Today we are going to talk about how to stitch the various parts of our pants together. You remember, we we drafted our basic pants pattern for a lady, and we said we're going to do the stitching today. Before we do that, we need to know the various components that make up the pants. And so we drafted the front and then the back patterns, which we all know. In case you did not have the opportunity to watch this very video, don't worry, we're going to put a link in the description box below so that you can also have access to it. Because if you are to start from this very portion, it would be very difficult to understand what you're doing. And so I would encourage you to go into the description box, follow the link, learn how to do the cutting, and then we'll continue from there. These are the various components of the pants that we need. The front and the back, which you already cut, we did not do this. And the others, as you see here, were also not cut. And so today we're just going to do a brief description of them before we continue. This is the pocket. We cut 4 pieces of the pocket. How did we do this? We took the side shape of the front pattern and we placed another fabric under it. In this case, another paper. We traced the side and the top, then took it off, and then we gave it the pocket shape we see here. And we did the cutting. After doing this, we cut 4 pieces of a fabric. When it comes to the front pattern, we cut 2 pieces. With the back pattern, we cut 2 pieces as well, good sides together. We also have this, which is the flap, which is going to help us to fix our front zipper. You see this very one here, it's our pocket, but this is a violin we cut. The violin is to give a structure to the pocket opening. This is also a 2-inch by 24 inches violin, 2 pieces cut, and this is also going to serve as our waistband. If you remember, we did not add any hem allowance to the basic pants we drafted, and we promised to add it when we were going to cut our fabric. This is what we've done here. With all these things, let's go ahead and do the stitching. So to start with, we're going to cut our pocket. We take 1.5 inch from the side and we'll measure 6.5 inches downwards. Then we measure 1/4 of an inch. So what you're going to do is we're going to cut this off. We will not do that alone. We'll cut it in addition to 2 pieces of the pocket we cut earlier. And so we'll put these 2 on, and then we'll place our pattern on it. And we'll cut this. It's usually advisable to make the pocket extend the pants itself just a little bit. So this is where the pant is. And the pocket extends a little bit. The next step is to take one of each of the pockets. This is the good side, good side, good side. And then we put good sides together. And so this is where we had our cut. This is where we had our cut. And with the other one, it's full. There's no cut. We place these on, we pin, and then we'll go stitch them together. So the next step is to fuse our violin onto the wrong sides of each of the front pattern. That's a pocket. We'll fold our hem, looking at the notches we created. We fold our hem and then we iron. We'll do the same for the knee. This is to help us identify the knee easily. We go for our back pattern, and this is what we do. We fold this very portion of the waist to the other side like this, and we give it a hot press. After doing this, we measure 5 inches downwards. This is 5 inches because this pant is high-waisted. If the waist was to be on the normal waist, we would have made it 4 inches, and the width is half. Remember, during the pattern drafting, we added 1 inch for that allowance, and so it's that 1 inch we are taking out. We repeat same for the other pattern. The next step is to see where we would fix our zipper. And this is what we do. If we were for a male, we would have placed the flap on the left side of the front pattern, but because it's a female, we'll do so for the left side so that the person is able to open with the left hand. But with a male pants, we would usually open with the right hand. I don't know if it really matters, but then that is what we do more often than not. And so in this instance, we're going to fix the flap on the right hand side of the front pattern. This has the good side. This violin has the shiny part on the surface here. And so what you're going to do is that we would attach it to our fabric. After attaching this to the fabric, we need 2 pieces of the same thing. So this is what we're going to do. We'll place these 2 together, and then we'll go and stitch along the curve, leaving this very portion and leaving the top as well. After we are done with this, we'll flip it inside out. And we would iron. With the other part of the violin that we're supposed to use for the flap, you remember we cut 2 different pieces. So with this other piece, this is what we're going to do. We first would fuse it onto our fabric, and then we'll flip it over like this. This is the first step. And then we'll put another fabric beneath it, where we flip that one as well over it. And so we come to get this. Then we go and then stitch all along this very curve. We cut it and we flip it to the good side like this. And so at the end, this is what we get. With the other flap, which you said we're going to place on the right side of the front pattern. This is it. I've already stitched it. How did you do this? It was just placed on the wrong side and then we sewed it. After sewing it, we flipped it to the good side, to this very side, and then we shifted all the seam allowances also towards the flap, and then we top stitched on the flap so that when we flip this whole thing backwards, there wouldn't be any trace of stitches shown at the good side. After we are done with this, we go and then fix our pocket. This is how we fix our pocket. You can see that we did a cut here. We did same for one piece of the pocket as well, and the other one we left it uncut. That's how come we still maintained the side hip shape. And so we just lift this onto it like this. We pin this, we take it to our sewing table, and then we stitch it. After we sewn this, we create a notch at the very corner where the curve is. It's a very sharp turn we did. And so we create this notch. After that, we give the pocket seam allowance a hot press towards the pant itself and not towards the pocket. We do same for the other side. After this, we place the whole pocket back and let's flip it over. Okay, so when we flip it over, this is what we get. We're supposed to shift this whole seam allowance inward like this, and we still give it a hot press to maintain the structure on the side. Right after this, we go to do our top stitching, and I would prefer a double stitching on this. Okay, so after we're done with the top stitching, we would go secure the edges. That's with the side of the pocket and the top of the pocket as well. Now that we are done with both pockets, so we'll go and overlock the edges. So right now, we've gone to overlock the edges. We've neatened it very, very well. And we've done the same for the back as well. And so we are done with the back. But with the front, we are left with how to fix our zipper. And so this is how we're going to do it. This is what we did, on which we said we're going to place our zipper like this. And so we'll first flip this to the wrong side. After we flipped it to the other side, we'll see the excess on top here. We need to straighten it up. And so we cut off the excess so that it's on the same line with the pants itself. The pocket too had some excess, and we are trimming that as well. The same thing with this very one. The pocket had some excess where it's longer than the pant waistline. So we trim that off, and we join the side to the waist like this. So now we flip this inward, we turn it over, and then we place the zipper face down like this, making sure that it does not get to the edge, but then there is some allowance, just about a quarter. Right now, we're going to pin it and we'll stitch on this side, not on the side that is closer to the center front, no, but then on the other side. We're lifting this off because we don't want to stitch it together. We'll then go and stitch on this side, leaving the other side. After we are done stitching this side of the zipper onto the front fly or the flap, we bring the other half that we had finished earlier and we place it on, making sure that we leave a bit of space on these edges. We leave a bit of space here. It would allow us to do our top stitching going forward. And so we do this, and then we hold the zipper beneath. That is the part that we did not stitch earlier, like this. And then we'll go and stitch this onto the other flap as well, the flap beneath. And so we'll go and stitch this very part. So right now, we need to mark the edge of this very pant, this very side of the pattern, so that we are able to place the opposite one directly under it, so that by the time we are done, the two would lie on the same length. And so we pin this, we'll go and sew this. So after we are done stitching this, we flipped this whole thing to the other side like this, and then we stitch the crotch, through to this very point, and then we stitch also to the other side like this, so that we've covered the zipper. And so if you have to flip it to this side, this is what we see. The zipper is inside like that. After we are done with this, we would then stitch the back pattern and the front pattern together on the hip side. And so this becomes our side seam. The video paused at a point, and so it was unknowing. So I went to check. And so I had done this already. So we'll finish the side seams of both left and right legs. So this is the time to fix our waistband. With a waistband, the width is 2 inches, but the length, what we actually need would be to measure, open the zipper, and then you measure. Measure this all along. We have 16. And so with a 16, you need about 4 inches extra. And so the 24 we cut was even more than enough. And so instead of the 24, we're going to cut 20 so that we do not waste our fabric. Neither do we waste our violin as well. If not for the tutorial purpose, it would have been advisable to finish this stage before you cut your violin, so as to save the violin you use. Okay, so what we have now is our waistbands, which we have fused with a fabric. we're going to do this. We need to measure the whole waist to see what we have now. Okay, so we have 28, but in actual fact, we want just 25, meaning we have about 1.5, we have about 3 inches seam allowance. But then, when we are stitching the waistband onto the fabric, we would make sure that we pull the fabric a bit. It wouldn't be gathered, but then we'll stretch the waistband whilst we pull the main waist, inward, to make sure that by the time we are done stitching the very two waistbands we have, we would have just about 1 inch as our seam allowance instead of the 1.5 we are having on both sides. And so it means by the time we are done, we should be getting around 27, 26 and a half. Yes. This will allow us, it will allow the waistband to be very, very tight, but then the rest of the pant won't tight the client that much. So this is what I meant. We hold this and then we push the rest of the fabric inward a bit so that it looks a bit gathered at this side. And we stitch it on. With the other side where the zipper lies too, we make sure that there is some excess of about 4 inches, you know, before we stitch. Now, we check if the two waistbands are aligned well. So this is what we get. Since the two are well aligned here, it means we can go ahead and then fix the opposite side. Right now, we're going to iron all the seam allowances towards the waistband. Okay, so after we've ironed the seam allowance towards the waistband, this is the next thing we're going to do. We can see that the one with the zipper, that's the one with the flap itself, it's able to turn inward. But there's one with a zipper attached on top. That one should always, be facing upwards, whilst the other one goes beneath, like this. And so what you're going to do is we'll turn the flap to the opposite direction, as in this way. We cut this off. We cut the excess off as well. We then would flip this over so that the edge looks finished, like this. We pin this down. We then go for our petition, or the waistband, as others would call it. And then we place it good side to good side. After we've made sure that this part, exceeds this, we can cut it at this stage. It shouldn't be shorter than what we flipped backwards. Rather, it should exceed it, so that as we flip it, it goes to hide under the flap. This is for this side. For the other side, we'll cut the excess as we did for the first, and rather we flip this backwards. After we've done this, we'll flip this again on so that the edge as well looks finished. We can pin this, we'll place this on, but then unlike the first one where we left the edge unfinished, with this very one, we would flip it backwards to ensure that this edge also looks very finished. I usually would not do it straight because of this, and so usually we'll turn it a bit away like this so that the edge looks neat and it also exceeds the one we folded at first. After we have folded this back on like this, we then move on to stitch, and then we stitch this side as well. After stitching, we are going to top stitch the waistband, the part that is going inside. We are going to top stitch it only so that it's able to take the whole of the good side inward without having anything showing at the good side. After we are done top stitching, we will flip them back to where they belong. And so let's start with this very portion. We flip this whole thing inside so that we'll be left with this. We do same for the other side. We flip this whole thing to the wrong side. And here we'll have this to iron. We're going to sew from here all the way down here, that is on the flap, and then we sew along where we had sewn the first time when we were sewing this very portion. After we are done sewing the flap on, we need to close our center back, and so we would then measure the desired waist and we mark. Okay, so our total waist band as we get here is 27. Let's trim off the excess. And so we open these, and since we had 25 for the waist and this is also giving us 27, it means we have to take 1 inch off. 1 inch on both sides will give us the 25 we so desire. We mark and then we'll go and stitch. So right now we're going to stitch the waistband here. That is where the waistband joins the pant itself. We're going to sew all along so that we're able to secure the lining of the waistband as well. We'll be able to secure it as we sew all along till we get to this very portion. So the next thing is to align the front and then the back legs. You pin them. This is where we ironed to be able to identify our knee line. So this is our knee line. And this is where the hem starts from. And so the hem is from here all the way to this very portion. And so we're going to take, we said our ankle was 13 inches. We take 13 inches. Half of it gives us 6.5. So we mark our 6.5 here. We come to the knee. The knee is 16 divided by 2 gives us 8. And so we mark that as well. With the help of a rule, with the help of a straight rule, we join these 2 points. from the knee to the crotch. We just mark 1/4 inch here, and then we join that 1/4 inch to the knee. We repeat the same thing for the other side. So the last step to finishing our pants is to hem the the bottom or the ankle. Wow, I so much appreciate you for staying tuned till the end of this video. For more of such videos, please don't forget to subscribe and then click on the notification bell so that any video we upload, you get to watch it. Thank you so much.